Hello, everyone. What is going on? James here, and welcome back to the pod. I am here with Ethan.
Hello, everybody.
So, today we're going to review the first four Quentin Tarantino films. Technically five, but Quentin himself counts Kill Bill as one film, and a lot of other people do. So, yeah. But first, Reservoir Dogs. And to be honest, I got to say with this one, it's definitely one of my favorite films of all time. It's just because originally it was going to be like done on $30,000, but Harvey Keitel saw the script and he was like, "Fucking hell, this is brilliant," and then
Yeah.
just produced it. But yeah, it does seem like one of those films that if you really had to, you could do it at university with your mates and people and whatever and make it. Like if you did it correctly. And I think the way it was edited really helped because if it was done in like the time of the events happening in the film, like the second half of the film would have just taken place in the warehouse. So it was
Mm.
very smartly edited to keep everyone interested.
Yeah, no,
But
Tarantino wanted to shoot the film with his college buddies on like a 16 millimeter film. Would have been black and white. Would have been, 1:4 aspect ratio. It would have been very low budget. But I'm so glad that Harvey Keitel saw the script and he worked with a lot of people to be able to get that made because even as a starter film, it's a brilliantly amazing cult classic to have such dynamic with the script. And I don't think Tarantino didn't have the original idea of him even directing it. He just wanted to write the script and have it produced. And Keitel even said that I can't give you this money to make this movie if you don't direct it. You have the visionary to do it. And I don't think we wouldn't have the works of Quentin today if it weren't for the brilliant producing skills of Harvey Keitel.
yeah, definitely. Um, But yeah, I mean, the opening of the film's good bants and just the back and forth conversation,
Yeah.
talking about that "Like a Virgin" song and the what other stuff.
Uh, w-
Uh,
not
Toby
tipping.
Wong, Toby Wong,
Yeah, Toby Wong.
Charlie
Yeah.
Chan. I've got Madonna's
hmm
big dick in my left ear, and Toby the Jack. I don't know what coming out of my right.
I think it's a
Uh,
brilliant scene because before, I mean, this has existed in a lot of films before Reservoir Dogs, but it the script and especially all of Tarantino's future works, the scripts just hold together the film so well because they're real. They're real people talking. It feels like this is a conversation you could hold with your mates, just a couple of bants with a bunch of random strangers, even though they were, kind of friends, kind of uh, a crew member type relationship, but still they were
mm,
real people. They felt like they were having a genuine conversation. They were laughing at each other's jokes. They were digging on each other. That's what just makes that opening so enthralling because I have a personal ideal that if you have to have a good beginning to your film because it's what draws your audience in, and if you can hold your audience in the beginning, then you can hold them through the rest of the film. And the opening to Reservoir Dogs is just there's no other word to describe it other than classic. The lines, the people, the whole not tipping thing, and of course the slow mo walk with Little
yeah,
Green
to Little
Bag.
Green
It's
Bag. Yeah.
it's just surreal. It's just doesn't have any sort of energy like any other film produced in its time or even now.
Yeah, because it's pretty sick how like with that because it's hard to describe why that slow mo walk to Little Green Bag's so good, but it's like I don't know all the shots of the characters and the actors' names on the screen. It's like you get what those characters are about. Harvey Keitel's quite a serious dude. Vic Vega's just having a laugh, and well, Michael Madsen's just having a laugh, smoking.
Yeah, yeah.
Chris Penn's talking to his dad and smiling, so you can tell he's not going to be doing any hands-on work with the crime. Um, Steve Buscemi's just I think he's just putting his glasses on and just saying something. So it's done really well. And Joe's obviously looking as grumpy as ever. So
Yeah, right. Great selection of a song too. It's so dynamic. It works great.
yeah, definitely. Um, as well, with it feeling like real people. The first scene, Tim Roth's in the back of the car being like, "I'm gonna die, Larry, I know it," and he's like, "You're not dying, you're not dying," and he's really really panicking, and it's not just like a quick shot of him being like, "I'm gonna die," and then Larry saying, "No, you're not," and then the next shot is just them driving into the warehouse. It's a full-on conversation,
Yeah, the
where Larry's
film
trying
really
to calm
just
him
throws you
down.
right into the action. I mean, it's got a very melancholy opening, but I mean, it just throws you right into it, which is something that can't be done if you have a very normal, expedition and then your climax and then your falling action, all that stuff. What Tarantino, at least his first two films, what he focused on a lot of is that he misplaces the scenes. And this is done on purpose so you by the end of the film you can see everything that's all come together, but it's out of order and you have to follow the story to be able to get every bits and pieces of it. And I think what makes Reservoir Dogs such a enthralling watch in the beginning is that you have a very quick to action scene. It doesn't show them planning the heist at the beginning because that's kind of boring. It works out great for the film when they do the planning the heist scene, but it throws you right into him bleeding in the back of a car, so something's already happened. You've already kind of missed out on the action. And for a film that's really focused around the plot of a jewelry heist and doesn't even show the heist itself and works fantastic, that just shows that you can have a plot that has a very uh I guess big budget idea to it and not even use it, as long as you can have the characters relate to whatever happened in the scene. You can write that. I mean, it works great in the movie.
Yeah. Out of interest, who did you on your first watching, if you can remember, who did you think the snitch was?
um I can't remember. It was a long time ago the first time I watched Reservoir Dogs, but I think I must have thought it was Steve Buscemi's character, Mr. Pink, I
Yeah.
believe. I Yeah, I thought that was the case. I don't ever think I had, Tim Roth ever in mind.
Yeah, because the film does a good job of making you think it's not him. Because at first, when I first heard, "Oh, was that a setup or what?" I thought, well, it has to be Tim Roth because all the other characters. I don't know, like when he ratted out, when he said he don't believe in tipping to Joe, and Joe's like, "Shut up," I sort of thought,
Yeah.
well, he's a bit of a snake. But then you think, well, he's got shot and he's such good mates with Larry. How could it be him? I think I
Right,
was
right.
thinking, I don't know why I thought this, but I thought for a laugh, Quentin Tarantino's character, Mr. Brown, was the
Oh,
was
right.
the and he
Yeah,
just do
that
that for
could've
a laugh, and he
that
accidentally
could
gets
have
shot
been
by
it.
the police.
Yeah, because in the original works, Tarantino wanted to play Mr. Pink, actually,
Mhm.
and, Buscemi came to him with an audition saying, "Well, look, this is the role I want." And Tarantino told him, "Well, I really want this role, so you're gonna have to give me a good audition if you want to be able to snag this role from me." And well, obviously the movie planned out how it planned out, so Buscemi's audition must have been enough.
Definitely.
But Buscemi's dynamic with Mr. Pink is it's such a great performance. It just
Yeah.
outsells almost all of the other ones. Michael Madsen with is it I
Vic
forget his character.
Vega.
Vic Vega, Mr. Blonde. That's right, Mr. Blonde, Vic Vega, which is supposed to be the brother of Vince Vega from Pulp Fiction. His relation of being just a psycho in sheep's clothing, basically,
Mhm.
brilliantly played out. The climax of him cutting off the detective's ear is just great, so great.
And obviously, around that time is when we find out that Tim Roth is the Snake, and it's pretty cool all the effort that goes into him being the rat, because it's not like he's just like, oh, brilliant, I'm just going to go in and wing this great. He goes to that geezer in the diner, and that dude's like, well, I'm going to have to train you in acting. Then Tim Roth's like, brilliant, and then he's like, what, I've got to memorize all this, and he's like, yeah, you've got to convince them, memorize this story over and over and over again, so they know that you're not full of shit.
Right.
Because the thing is, they know that he hasn't got a criminal background and he's just some bloke who's come on
Yeah.
the scene, while Larry and Joe go way back.
Yeah. And I love the because Tarantino, as he's a storyteller. He's a brilliant storyteller, and I like how the dynamic of storytelling fits into Reservoir Dogs. He has to tell a story to tell a story of the film. You have to be able to relay and make it authentic enough to make it good. And I mean, the whole cop scene is hilarious. I think it's great with the dogs
Mhm.
and how that is all framed. Actually, one of the cops, I can't remember his name. He's actually a friend of Tarantino's who helped produce the film multiple times.
Oh, what lads?
Who was in My Best Friend's Birthday, which was Tarantino's like student film. Horrible. It's downright atrocious. But I like how he's kept his contacts and been able to build up a really small cast with just some of his friends and whoever Keitel was able to get his hands on in the producing stages.
Yep, fair comment. Zach has commented. I am considering maybe watching Kill Bill's two vols. Yeah, watch them, man. They're absolutely class. Very easy watches. Very watchable.
Yeah.
A lot of fun.
Yep. Great films. Check them out.
But yeah, anyway, so he puts the effort in, he acts. More casual conversations ensue. There's a lot of good back and forths. The climax of the film's great, where they're all coming in, and Joe's like, "The cocksucker tipped off the LAPD," and he's like, "I'm not going to be made a fool of no more." And then Larry's like, "No, I'm not letting you kill this bloke. He got shot." And
Yeah.
then Chris Penn's like, "Don't you dare fucking shoot my father." And then
Yeah.
they all just shoot each other. And then Tim Roth admits, "Yeah, I'm the snake." And then Harvey Keitel shoots him, and then he gets shot. And job's a good one. Yeah, just very realistic film. A lot of fun, great bands. The only weakness I can think of is maybe it would have been good to actually show Mr. Blue's death, because we don't see him die. Yeah, apart from
Yeah.
that, I can't think of
That
any.
that ending Yeah, that ending is kind of what sparks the controversy of how Tarantino um, references, or I guess he pulls his ideas, because the Texas shootout type Mexican standoff at the end of Reservoir Dogs, very infamous scene, but it is basically ripped right from 1987 City on Fire.
Yeah, well, bro, one of my mates actually got me to watch that, and but that there wasn't a snake in that one, was there? It was just sort of like the bloke died, and it was quite a sad
Yeah,
ending. The
right,
cop did.
exactly. But the whole standoff is a scene basically ripped right from City on Fire,
Mhm.
and he admitted it, at least. Tarantino was like, "Yeah, I took it right from that scene. I love that movie. That's something I wanted to homage and make
Mhm.
my own." And
Yeah, it's pretty
I
damn
I
good.
personally don't have a problem with that. A lot of cinephiles and big film enthusiasts, they're like, he's not genuine. He steals all of his ideas and all that stuff. I think there's a difference between the way Tarantino convolutes his ideas and what he homages, because he himself is a really big film nerd, and in the end of all things, he just wants to homage the things that he loved and grew up with, and I have no problem with it.
Yeah, same. At the end of the day, when you're paying homage, it's like you're showing respect to something. It's not like he's ripping it straight out of the book and copying it, word for word and scene for scene.
Right,
He's
right.
just paying homage to it. A lot of films pay homage to a shit ton of different things. A lot of ideas aren't original because everything's already been done. It's sort of how you just put your spin on it and add
Yeah.
some decent spices to the pot. I really like a violent action film. Like horror movies are boring since often just people getting murdered and no resistance action film. I mean, to be honest, in Kill Bill, some of it did make me cringe. I'm not gonna lie, but it was cringing in a good way. It wasn't like just gore for the sake of gore. It was pretty cool. Um, but yeah, what would you give it out of 10, Ethan?
Reservoir Dogs, over its standpoint, I mean, as an actual uh behemoth to cinema, I mean, it could literally be taken as a perfect 10. I give it a 9 out of 10, and I
Hmm.
only take away from some, because even as great as it is, Tarantino was an amateur. He made small mistakes. It's not you can't have a perfect film. And
Hmm.
I think it also, my rating kind of has to levelate with how I also uh, see his other films, because I have films that I respect more than Reservoir Dogs, but there's no there's no other filmmaker that has the magnum opus of Tarantino with such a bang on film that just is already a cult classic. His first film, his first feature film, at least
Yeah,
to a degree,
exactly.
is one of the greatest hallmarks of action cinema.
I
So that's
mean,
a great start off.
I can't even think of many other directors who've had a debuting film that's good. I mean, I don't know if Danny Boyle's, if Train Spotting, if you've ever seen that, was Danny Boyle's
Yeah,
first film. I'm not
yeah,
sure. It might have
and
been because it was
it
such a low
depends on
budget
who
one.
you are. You know, if you have a big film standpoint, you kind of understand, like such as David Lynch. You know, have technically Eraserhead is a big hit, but that's to a certain degree of people. But Reservoir Dogs took off the moment it came out in cinemas, and
Hmm.
people love his stuff.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I guess we can move on to Pulp Fiction. One of my all-time favorites. Love it. Watched it about like 30 or 40 times. Whenever I went to, when I used to go to my grandparents' house, I'd always put Pulp Fiction on for a shit ton of times when I was 14 and 15, just loads.
Yeah,
And they thought it was a good film. Well, my nan, she wasn't a fan of it. She didn't like the violence, but she thought the dancing scene was all right. But the
yeah,
rest of the family who was there thought it was an absolute banger of a film. But yeah,
definitely
straight.
the film that put Tarantino's name on the map.
Yeah, because it was like an 8.5 million budget, but like I swear it made like 285 million or something ridiculous. Or I
Yeah, and
tried to
even
check
went
it.
to Cannes Film Festival and won the Palme d'Or. Major achievement on Tarantino's part. Even though he flipped somebody off in the crowd because
Oh,
they were mad at I actually I don't remember what competition was for Best Picture, but some French film that the Cannes Film Festival is held in Cannes, Paris, and of course not exactly the respective audience that wanted to see that movie, and uh, there was a couple angry fans that told him, or they spoke French and yelled at him in the stadium, but he just flipped them off and did his acceptance speech and won perhaps the greatest uh, award that could be given to a filmmaker, the
fair
Palme
play
d'Or,
to the lad.
and yeah, fantastic win, honestly.
Hmm.
A very different film for its time. Never I wouldn't call it anthology because it doesn't. Well, yeah, I suppose it is an anthology film. A film that takes different stories and convolutes them into one or different segments. Um, Great dynamics, the way that they trip back and forth to each other, and they all have to do with each other. There's a lot of anthology films that really don't play on each other. They're just their own separate stories, such as Wes Anderson's The French Dispatch, or even Robert Rodriguez's Sin City to a degree. The characters can appear in the background of the other one, but they don't really have to do with each other too much. But Pulp Fiction, there was really nothing like an anthology film back then. It was just something that was basically on pen and paper with those genre of directors, and it was the first film to have something that tripped back and forth so much that made people pay attention to the story more.
For sure. It's pretty cool at the start how, just like in Reservoir Dogs, the characters Vincent and Jules are just having casual conversations about like Vincent's time in Europe, debating how much a foot massage means romantically, and talking about TV pilots. And then Samuel L. Jackson rolls into the apartment room and he's like, "Hey kids, Daddy's home." And then he's like, "Flock of seagulls, you know why we're here?" and all that jazz. And then Vincent's like, "We happy with the golden suitcase?" And then
Yeah.
he reads that awesome Bible passage, which is really really cool. Um,
Yes, yes.
the
And
way he says it as well, the way he articulates it.
I will strike down upon thee with great vengeance and furious fire those who attempt to poison and destroy my brothers, and you will know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee.
Damn
Absolutely
straight.
striking line delivery. And I'm so glad. I've also heard that Lawrence Fishburne was actually up to play um, his character Jules, and I just could not see that film any
I
other way
don't.
without uh, Jackson.
Yeah, I don't know if it would have worked anywhere near as well. Like Lawrence doesn't seem like the sort of dude who I know he acted angry in Apocalypse Now, and I know that he acted, in I guess he doesn't just act like Morpheus in everything, but I don't
Right,
think he
right.
could have pulled off the English motherfucker. Do you speak it? And why are you trying to fuck him like a bitch and all that jazz?
Yeah, he
I don't
couldn't
think.
pull off that
Yeah.
raw energy that Jackson has, and from what I understand, Jackson was actually owed that role because he had auditioned for Reservoir Dogs. He
Oh,
had
nice.
auditioned for the detective lieutenant who gives him the Tim Roth the script and tries to coach him into being in this heist. And
Yeah, that would have been
he
fairly cool. Yeah.
yeah, he it could have been good, and I'm glad things worked out how they did because otherwise he wouldn't have gotten this role, or I mean, he could have, but he was more owed this role, and
Hmm.
Tarantino and I think it was Robert Rodriguez who did the casting call for Reservoir Dogs. They were goofing around and they weren't paying attention to Samuel L. Jackson's performance,
Oh.
and he didn't get the role. And when Tarantino learned of this, he sort of said, "Well, I can put you in my next film as kind of a retribution, I think. And I think you're a great actor, blah, 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 blah." And he wrote this character dynamically perfect for Samuel L. Jackson. I'm sure he had like him in mind, perfect uh, correlation between his acting skills and how the characters played out on screen because it is fantastic. It's one of the most, I suppose, infamous performances of black exploitation. Just great, and all of his lines are memorable. You know, everyone who can remember Pulp Fiction at least remembers one of his lines: "The English motherfucker, do you speak
Easy.
it?" or whatever it be.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's skipping a bit through the film, but I think the character arc he goes on is the best. Like how that bloke runs out and he's like, "Die, motherfuckers!" and then they don't get shot, and then Samuel
Oh
L.
yeah,
Jackson, like,
the guy who looks like Jerry Seinfeld.
they should have got Jerry to. They should,
Yeah, that would have been
"Die,
funny.
motherfuckers!" Oh, man, that would have been sick. Or George Costanza. It should have just
Yeah,
been George Costanza, Kramer, and Cherry in that apartment
that
getting
would have been
killed.
great.
Oh. And then Elaine can be like Marvin's character, which would have been a bit sad seeing her get shot. But I
Yeah,
guess they've
yeah.
all got to take their places. But yeah. Anyway, I love the arc he goes on. How he, in his mind, God got involved and stopped those bullets, and he thinks, you know what? I shouldn't be going around killing people. I'm just going to walk the earth now. And I love how Vincent's like, you're just going to be a bum. You're going to be a bum. And it's like, well, the thing is, he might be a bum in your eyes, but he's walking the world and living peacefully. While Vincent's taking a shit
Right.
on Bruce Willis's toilet, then he's getting shot. So I
Yeah,
know,
and
I know what path I'd rather go down.
there's a great aura of what the script is trying to say about the righteousness of God and how they've been basically protected because the bullets don't hit them and they survive things that they shouldn't, and everything that happens in the movie happens for a reason. The way
Hmm.
that that he didn't shoot Marvin and the gun went off spontaneously, well, that sent them down a series of events that led them to getting the car cleaned and meeting Harvey Keitel and getting the case there in a certain amount of time, which all leads to how Vincent dies and everything that surfaces to a
Yeah.
degree. And of course, the question of what's in the briefcase, and how greed is involved with the dynamics of how what characters do in the film and how everything that somebody does affects another person or affects how they continue to live their lives, like a butterfly effect.
Hmm. Because the thing is with Vincent, the only like he's not a Patrick Bateman, he's not a complete psychopath. He's doing this because it pays well. Because Marcellus is paying him the big bags. But obviously,
Yeah.
it leads down the road of his death. So
Yeah, and he's not a psychopath, but at the same time he's not a morally good person.
oh,
And of
definitely not.
course
Yeah.
his heroin addiction is what ends up getting him killed in the end is cuz a factor of being a heroin addict is that it basically speeds up your bowels. So, he's always you notice he's always in the bathroom. He's always like when he's at the diner with Mia or when he's or sorry, the diner with Jules and the the dancing competition with Mia, and then of course at the end when he's in Bruce Willis's apartment, Butch's apartment, and he's taking a shit literally. He gets shot that way because his greed and his involvement in drugs and everything is what really ends up getting him killed, not the fact that he was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, exactly. Bang on the money. But yeah, I mean, another good thing about this film, it just feels like every single bit of dialogue, every single conversation is just pure, utter, just brilliance, man.
Yeah.
Apart from Bruce Willis discussing with I don't know if her name's I can't remember her name. The I think she's like Swedish or Estonian or something. That she's going on about pot bellies. That was a bit boring, but everything
Are you
else
talking about
compared to
his? Are you talking
his
about
girlfriend, yeah,
Fabian? Oh,
that's it, yeah.
Maria de Medeiros.
Yeah, apart from the potbelly conversation, the rest of the script I think was just pure gold.
Yeah, literally. uh, I like Steve Buscemi's cameo.
Yeah, as
That
the way
line, the line about would you like a Jerry, or was it the Jerry Lewis, or I forget the other one. But it's like the comedians. Would you like your milkshake vanilla or chocolate?
Mhm.
Really great. I think it's Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin or something. Really hilarious.
Yeah, it was nice he rolled up in the film. Definitely.
Yeah.
Some stuff I found a bit weird though. The only minor weakness I can think with the film is like when Yolanda's saying, "I'll kill every motherfucking last one of you," and then the next time she's like, "I'll kill every last one of you motherfuckers," and it's like it doesn't sound
Yeah,
any better
the line delivery is different. I do remember that. And
because it's set in a different universe.
every time I rewatch the film, I always can't bring myself to think higher of it. I always learn more, which I do like
Mm,
about Pulp Fiction, is you can always learn more and figure out more about the story, but I can't ever find myself to just uh think better of it. I never think worse of it, which is great.
yeah.
It's a very well-rounded film, but it's just the big anticlimactic money bag for Tarantino, and then he can go write his more dynamic work, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, some other things I wanted to bring up. The date with Mia was great. I liked. I can't remember the bloke's name. The ginger bloke who was originally going to play Marty McFly. Um,
Oh, Eric
Lance.
Stoltz.
Lance is. That's it. Yeah, but
Yeah,
yeah, I just remembered in the film he's called Lance, and there's a lot of brilliant tension when Mia's overdosing. Bruce Willis, ripping off Marcellus. That was pretty cool.
yeah,
And even though it is cool how you mentioned about the money earlier, all the characters are doing shit for money, but it's nice how Bruce Willis, he thinks, fuck everything else. My dad went through absolute utter hell to get that watch,
right.
as Christopher Walken said at the start of Butch's chapter. So
Yeah,
about how difficult it was, how he hid the watch up his ass for 5 years and died, and Christopher
great.
Walken's
Yeah,
came all this way to Christopher Walken's walked into the apartment and came all this way to give him the watch. So
yeah.
it shows how much it means.
That's funny you bring up Eric Stoltz, because actually something I wanted to point out about Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction is Tarantino's collaboration with Roger Avary. And I think it's a little unfair, the way Roger Avary has been represented in the film world, because he actually has a lot of influence of the scripts of Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction. That's just not seen in a lot of Tarantino's other work that he didn't work with Roger Avary on. And I think it's sort of Tarantino wanted to have his name on everything. Roger Avary still is put in the credits as the co-writer and everything, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of Pulp Fiction is actually Roger Avary's written work and Tarantino's directorial vision. The characters and everything are all, to Tarantino's degree, but I think a lot of the dynamic comes from Roger Avary and his work with Eric Stoltz on The Rules of Attraction and Killing Zoe, which are also great films on their own. But I think those two were just a fantastic combination during the 90s that unfortunately were just never seen again.
Quite a shame. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about a bit more about the Bruce Willis storyline. It's cool how Bruce gets himself out of trouble by saving Marcellus from those evil rapists, and it was cool how he took his time to pick the weapon as well. He's like,
Right.
Marcellus can wait, but he obviously made for like good shots. And then in my head, I sort of think the reason he did it, I think he obviously wanted to get cleared because he thought, bro, they're going to think I killed Marcellus. But I think at the same time, he did. Although he didn't like Marcellus, he probably didn't want him to have a horrible fate of being trapped in that basement, getting raped by those guys forever for the rest of his life. So
Right, which
that
is
was cool that he
another
went.
full circle about Pulp Fiction's ideal on morality and, whatever considers people to be good and evil. So, to a degree, I think there's, all those characters have some good in them. They're not fully evil people.
Mm-hmm,
Especially with, I think that's perfectly shown with Marcellus's character, to the fact that he is at the end of everything, even though he's this hard ass gangster. I mean, Ving Rhames' performance is too stellar for it, but this hard ass criminal who you would never want to cross the line with, but him at his lowest point, getting pegged by a dude is basically like he at the end of everything, he's a human being, and
mm-hmm.
he's no higher than anybody else. And the way Bruce Willis is able to save him in the end is a correlation of how everybody has no person is solely evil. There is always a humanistic quality to all their characters, which is what
Yeah.
makes Tarantino's movies so dynamic and fantastically written, is because they're people. They're not these, you wouldn't even consider them characters when you watch the film. They're people to you.
Mm-hmm. And something else that's quite interesting as well. Obviously, Bruce Willis, he kills someone. Travolta, Samuel L. Jackson, Marcellus, all murderers. Mia Wallace is obviously, in the life. She's
Right.
involved in that in some way, shape, or form. But Zed and the bloke who owns the shop, they're you at first glance you'd think they're regular people, and he's a policeman, Zed. Yet they're the most evil. It's crazy, but it's just about perspective, isn't it? As you mentioned, there's good in even these crazy murder. I know Bruce Willis didn't intend to kill that other boxer, but like they've
Yeah.
all killed people, yet they're less worse than people you at first glance you'd consider like normal.
Yeah, Zed and Maynard, they're more looked upon as eviler characters, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
definitely. But I give this film 10 out of 10. One of my all time favorites. Definitely one of the objectively best films ever as well. I just think it's pure bants. Yeah, great practical fun. The end was great. How Samuel L. Jackson showed that he's changed because the way he says that passage, it's a lot more calm down. It's like you know you know my name is the Lord when I lay my vengeance upon thee, and he's like really calm and cool.
Yeah.
And then the way he adds onto it at the end is like you know I'm the shepherd and you're the weak, and no
Hmm.
I'm the I don't know no I'm the tyranny of evil men and you're the weak, and this 9mm is the shepherd guiding me through the valley of darkness. Also, it's not that word for word, but it's a bit like that, and I thought that was pretty
Right.
badass.
Yeah. Great script.
But what would you give it out of 10?
I gave it an 8 out of 10. There's just pieces of it that are kind of a hit and miss for me, but an all around fantastic action film, different for its time, always captivating. No matter how many times I watch it, I'll never get bored of it. It's always enthralling, and it always has the same climactic energy that you have it for the first time you watch it. It means a lot. But before we go on to Jackie Brown, I did want to ask you, and before we leave Pulp Fiction, what do you think is in the suitcase?
There's a few different possibilities: gold, glow in the dark money, Marcellus Wallace's soul.
Right.
Um, yeah, but what I think is in there is probably a flashlight.
A
Yeah,
flashlight. Yeah,
yeah, just the world's most expensive flashlight.
I like that. I like that.
What about you? What do you reckon?
Physically, I think it's just like really bright gold or something, or like gold
Yeah,
money, just something really bright. But of course, metaphorically, what it's representing is greed, and
yeah, for
it doesn't
sure.
matter what the object is. It's greed and wealth and evil. But yeah, it could be something really stupid like I don't know, Mr. Gold Lego figure or something just
Yeah,
obtuse
exactly. Yeah,
to its time.
yeah.
But yeah,
Oh yeah, what did you think of the Harvey Keitel and Quentin Tarantino in it? You know, Winston Wolfe. He's been in, but I know you're obviously not going to see this in the States, but in England, he's showed up in a bunch of Direct Line adverts where he's like, I'm the wolf. I solve problems." And then, well, Quentin Tarantino was quite funny in the film as well, where he's like, "If Bonnie comes home and there's a dead body, I'm gonna get
yeah,
fucking divorced." And then
yeah.
he's like, "You guys look like a couple of dorks." So
I
he was
forget the
pretty
T-shirt
balanced.
he wears in that movie over his under his red checkered robe, but really cool thing about that is it was like he wore it as it was a news news TV shirt, and it was like the first company that ever, or it was a publishing magazine, the first people that ever interviewed him about being a filmmaker. So in respect that he wore that T-shirt with their logo on it. But yeah, his character's hilarious. I love it. There's no other way to fit Tarantino into that movie other than be a whiny bitch.
Just completely flipping out. And I
Yeah,
love how Jules is just like, "Well, they're your clothes, motherfucker." And it's true. How can you mock someone and say you look like a dog when they're your clothes? It's just
yeah,
pure bants.
yeah.
But now on to Jackie Brown. So
Yes, the next feature film of Tarantino, Jackie Brown. Technically, before he started Jackie Brown and just after Pulp Fiction, he also worked on a real anthology film called Four Rooms with Roger Avery and I think Alexandra Rockwell, if I'm not mistaken. They made this really goofy comedy film with Tim Roth as
oh yeah,
a
is that when he's got the fez on and he's in like hotel gear,
yeah,
like
yeah.
blue hotel?
And I really think Tarantino's segment in that is one of my least favorite, but I think it's great that he stuck to the anthology work and put his 2 cents into it. And I like any time that he works with Robert Rodriguez. I think I might have said Roger Avery by accident. Anytime he works with Robert Rodriguez is fantastic.
I can't believe it's going to be it's given such a bad rating, and Marissa Tomei is in it, which is pretty cool.
Well, I sort of understand. Allison Anders' segment is horrible. It's got
Oh,
Madonna in it, but there's like better segments than others, and it's a very silly, goofy movie. It's trying to be very serious sometimes.
oh,
The Allison Anders segment is horrible. Tarantino's is okay. He's trying to do a Alfred Hitchcock type of thing. I think Robert Rodriguez's is the best. It's got the fellow who does Antonio Banderas. I was gonna
yeah.
say Puss in Boots.
Your favorite
uh,
fearless hero.
yeah, great work in that one. But yeah, that sort of sets up how he's going to start directing Jackie Brown. Jackie Brown is not really a anthology, more like his other works, but a very straightforward crime film, which I have a lot of fun watching.
Yeah, I mean, in the opening, it sort of feels like you're just watching GTA. Like it feels like you're watching a GTA game. I don't know why. You've just got Ordell chilling, Robert De Niro. You got Ordell's blonde. Well, it's not his girlfriend. It's like his side lady because he's got other ladies who he has it away with and chills out with. So
Right.
you've got those three people there, and they're just all bouncing off each other, and Ordell sort of treating the blonde lady like shit, which is a shame. But that
Yeah.
Ordell's quite a piece of shit, and De Niro's still quite a piece of shit in it, but he's not as bad. And
I think it's
Ordell,
a I think it's a great combination to have Robert De Niro and Tarantino because that after that they've never worked with each other, but those are some of the greatest minds working together on one film.
yeah,
And I
definitely,
think I mean it's amazing that he chose De Niro, but Quentin Tarantino was asked at one point who he thought the greatest actor was, or at least the greatest actor he worked with, and he did say De Niro. I mean, he's worked with so many fantastic actors and
Mhm.
put his characters to so many greater uses, such as DiCaprio in Django Unchained and Once Upon a
Yeah.
Time in Hollywood. Of course, Samuel L. Jackson, um, Christoph Waltz, fantastic in Inglorious Bastards. But yeah, De Niro, just uh, of course, brilliant actor. No other acting skills like him. Very classically trained. Uh, Great minds working together on one film. Pam Grier, of course. I know Tarantino had wanted to work with Pam Grier for quite a while, and Pam Grier is mentioned in the Reservoir Dogs conversation at the diner table. They talk about Pam
Mhm.
Grier. Great that he got to work with her. I love Bridget Fonda, even though I think that was one of her last movies that she worked in. And this is where Tarantino really picks up with the foot shot in every movie. It's
Oh
not in
yeah.
Reservoir Dogs, obviously. That would be really awkward if it was in Reservoir Dogs.
Joe's
With
old feet.
yeah, with a practically all male cast. But Pulp Fiction, there's the whole subplot about the foot massages and Mia
Yeah.
Wallace and all that. But I mean, Bridget Fonda's tootsies are on display at least every other second in Jackie Brown, and
Mhm.
I think the opening shot is her feet, if I'm not mistaken, or that might be Death Proof. But
Maybe
either,
it seems like, as you say, he went a bit mad with the foot shots.
yeah, she's great in it though. When she's bothering Robert De Niro, is it this Car Lewis? Lewis?
Yeah.
Hilarious performance by Bridget Fonda. Um, Michael Keaton's in it. I don't
Yeah, he does
really
a good
remember.
job.
I don't really remember his performance, to be honest, too
He was
much.
all right. He was just he was
He
the
was the
good cop, and the geezer with the mustache was the bad cop.
Yeah, yeah. But my favorite character is Max Cherry, and that's Robert
The
Forster.
bail bondsman.
Yeah, Robert Forster is such a amazing actor. Um, I think his performance sort of outsells De Niro's in this one, but he's so so dynamic. I love his character. Uh, Forrester, of course, classically trained actor. If I'm not mistaken, he's the trying to put something 2 cents that the audience might understand. The vacuum cleaner fella from Breaking Bad.
Yeah, the one who makes people disappear.
Yeah. Um, just great performances in this one. I think Tarantino's very good with casting, but Jackie Brown holds like just a brilliant cast. And like I said, I don't actually really remember much of Keaton's performance, but just all of together these um, actors that come together to make this film are really great.
Definitely. Um, I mean, I haven't really got a lot to say about this one. Well, I guess I got a bit. I mean, you made some good points about it. I don't know why. I just found bits of it sort of like, I don't know, like a bit either boring, or I was a bit annoyed. Like at the end when the bail bondsman didn't go with Jackie Brown, I was like, that's
Uh,
really sad. Why didn't he go with her? Oh, that doesn't ruin the film, but I felt a bit like,
I'm
um,
very fine with the ending, but I understand where
no,
you're coming from. Yeah,
it's just how I personally, if it wasn't objectively bad, I guess like you feel like he's got to do his own shit and she's got to do her own shit.
sure.
Uh,
Yeah,
but I just sort of felt kind of sad for them. But it is just a film and it was done well. As I say, her getting all the money off everyone, pulling the wool over everyone's eyes, and she's not doing it to be like greedy or a tit. She's doing it because she's like, I work as an air hostess and I make absolutely fuck all. So like,
yeah,
I've got to do this at the end of the day. This is my only option at sort of, getting a decent life,
yeah.
which is fair. And the way she mugs off Ordell at the end, she's just like, "He's got a gun," and then he just gets shot. It's
Yeah,
like, man, she
it's
pranked
definitely
everyone.
Tarantino's first step into remaking blaxploitation films, which, from what I understand, he grew up very heavily on, because he grew up in very poor neighborhoods and in
Mm.
California, and Basically just to completely would go to like black theaters and go see these black exploitation films. It was basically the way they have the controversy of Django Unchained now, of how many times they say the N word. That they still had the same problem with Jackie Brown, and it was very, very minute back then because it was the 90s and nobody really cared. Now, of course, everyone's got their foot up their ass about, oh, you can't say this, you can't say this, you shouldn't say this. And Django Chain, of course, gets its own issues. But Jackie Brown was definitely its first, Tarantino's first big politically controversial film. Of course, he already kind of got controversial with his violence of Pulp Fiction, and I think he even had a horror makeup artist walk out of the premiere of Reservoir Dogs over the ear cutting
Oh,
scene.
but the
Which
baffling thing. Oh, I guess we can get to his violence, and I just wanted to mention one thing, right? The baffling thing with his violence, like people complain about that scene, they don't even see the ear get cut off. It's like it's done with a
no,
silhouette, so I
no,
don't see why they're so grouchy about it.
I don't know. I guess it's because in the end, they show where the ear was cut off and there's blood, and that's probably it's very tame. The squibs are great in all of his movies. A lot more blood violence in Pulp Fiction, cursing and
Hmm.
everything. And I think the F word is said like 230 times or something during the duration of
Yeah.
Pulp Fiction. But yeah, Jackie Brown is very controversial, or was. It shouldn't really be anymore. And I still disagree that Django Unchained should be controversial, but
Well, the
was
thing is, the
whenever
people
it
who
came
are,
out.
I was going to say, I mean, all I'd say to these people who are annoyed at him for using bad words and whatever, the thing is, the people that say these bad words are like, well, people who you don't want to be, No one
Right.
wants to be like Zed or that other bloke, No one wants to be like the slave owners in Django Unchained, you know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
Jimmy says the, N-word storage and all that jazz, but it's because he's just a bit of a complainy, whiny tit, isn't he? So.
Yeah, and I also think Tarantino will grasp at anything he can say that word for. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think Jackie Brown is a very fun film overall. I love the mall scenes.
Yeah,
That's
they're
just
dope.
a personal preference of mine. I like films that can take a dynamic to publicity of malls and all that, but I understand. And the color grading is new. Um, he has good cinematography. He's very great at having good color usage, but Jackie Brown kind of takes color to a different scheme. In Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, they're just good shots. There's good cinematography and everything looks good. Then there's Jackie Brown where there's still good cinematography, and now we're starting to add like color palettes, and there's more of a what this color does for every scene. Um, no, I wouldn't ever compare him to Wes Anderson, but in a degree of where Wes Anderson picks a color palette, right? He picks what this movie is going to look like, and he's going to stick to it. And that's kind of what Jackie Brown does. It's a very blue and yellow movie, which I like. There's not not the most tight script that Tarantino worked on, but like we have discussed before, they're people. They still feel like human beings at the end of
Mhm,
everything.
definitely. And although I complained about the ending, well, as much as the ending subjectively annoyed me a bit, it seems like the most realistic thing a geezer who has a business in his 50s would do. He's not going to run off with
Right.
Jackie Brown. He's going to
Yeah.
stick to what he knows and make a load of cash.
Yeah. Um, but this isn't really talked about too much, but the scene with her practicing pulling the gun,
That was
when
cool,
she's
yeah.
practicing in the revolver. Um, I'm sure your film cinephiles will go after it a little bit, but the way people had the issue with Reservoir Dogs taking that scene from the end from City on Fire is a funny thing that I notice about Jackie Brown is a scene from Paul Thomas Anderson's Hard Eight, where a character does the same thing. He practices drawing the weapon on a character played by Samuel L. Jackson. So there
Right.
you have these two different movies about characters. Well, that have a scene with characters practicing shooting Samuel L. Jackson, which I think is great. Which I believe both are great films on their own terms. It's definitely mellow compared to the way people expect Tarantino to be. You know, everyone wants the quick action immediately, and Jackie Brown spends more time on the plot, which I'm not exactly opposed to, but I can see why people disassociate themselves from this one.
Yeah. Yeah, fair comments. I mean, I ain't really got much to say about the film. I guess I'd probably give it 8 out of 10.
Yeah,
Or 7.5.
That's what I give it. I give it a good 8. Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Well, now on to Silly Rabbit, Tricks Are for Kids. That's all I've got to say about Kill Bill. See everyone. Take care. Have a yeah, Kill
Good
Bill.
bands. Oh man, you had me there. So we're just talking about Volume 1? Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, Volume 1 and 2. Yeah. But
Yeah.
Volume 1 first might as well.
So we're gonna talk about both volumes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Of course, big controversy is Kill Bill 2 movies. Everyone to each their own opinion. What do you think, James?
I mean, I don't mind what people class it as. Quentin classes it as one, but the thing is, right, at the end of the day, the one for disc that you'll get of it, and then Kill Bill Volume 2, you get that. They're separate things. They're not the same thing, sadly, even though they're the same story. Because it's like other films take place really close to each other and get filmed at the same time, like Lord of the Rings and Pirates of the Caribbean 2 and 3, and I'm sure other films have been filmed close together. So I count them as 2 separate films, but Quentin and everyone else can do what they want. It doesn't bother me either way.
I mean, I get it. It was filmed as one movie. I understand that, but also I can see how people can associate them as 2. One that's been sold and publicized as 2 different movies. And each film has its own epilogue, rising action, climax, falling action, ending, and they work fine as their own films. Of course, one cannot exist without the other. I would drive myself insane if Kill Bill 2 didn't exist, but I'm very okay with both being their own separate things. Now, there is a cut of the film that is the full, 4 hours worth, and I know, people have remade it, but the actual version of it, I think only Tarantino has, and he shows it at a couple film festivals or something. Because I am interested of how the original one fades over to the next movie. Because the ending of Kill Bill 1 is very melodramatic, and it works great. The way that he, he says that, does he know that her daughter's still alive? And then it ends, and then that keeps you on the edge of your seat. But I wonder how that fit into the original one compared to the following sequence.
Yeah. Bill reminds me of. He reminds me a bit of the Give Me Rent guy. No, of the Give Me Rent guy.
The who?
The Spider-Man guy. Give Me Rent.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why. He just reminds me a bit of him. Looks a bit like him.
Yeah,
I think he would have done a good job as the Give Me Rent guy. I mean, Spider-Man versus Bill. I mean, that would have been a good fight. That would have been pretty sick.
David Carradine would have been around. I think Spider-Man 2 is 2004.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think David Carradine died until 2006.
It was 2009. I'm pretty sure.
2009.
He hung himself, but they reckon it was he didn't do it on purpose. It was just a sexual hanging. It was just like for him to get off. Which is pretty
very unfortunate. Very unfortunate.
It seems a bit sad that like an old. Yeah, it seems a bit weird that somewhat. I mean, obviously, it's weird if anyone's doing that sort of thing, but it's sad that some dude who's made it in life, some old geezer, He's just doing that to himself. And
Yeah,
he had a wife as
he
well.
was in his
So,
50s, and it's just kind of sad that he didn't really have. You would think that at that point you would probably not do that. You would have it together.
yeah, exactly. But there you go. I guess actors, everyone's got their skeletons, and I guess that was just one of his skeletons. I guess.
Yeah,
Very sad.
unfortunate because he's a fantastic actor. He blew the performances away in Kill Bill.
Yeah, he was
Um,
sick as Bill.
even though he really isn't in much of the first one, he's such a well written character. So evil.
Yeah.
And when we talk about the ending of Kill Bill 2, I'll get into more of his dialogue and the way he's dynamically written. But great actor. Unfortunately, just lost him way too soon.
Yeah. But anyway, with Kill Bill starts off with Uma Thurman at, her most vulnerable, beaten up, battered, and then she's like, Bill, it's your baby. And then she gets shot. Then that's that. But then, she rolls up to one of the I don't know, Bill's assassins, the lady with the daughter. And they throw down in a brilliant action fight, a brilliant action sequence, and that
Yes.
lady's daughter actually walks in at the end. But the main reason that that assassin gets killed is because, well, she tries to shoot Uma Thurman, and she's like, "I'm not having
Through
that," and
the
just throws a knife
through
at her.
the box of through the box of cereal, which is
Yeah,
Vernetta Green is her character, I believe. Um, I can't remember her code name, but I from what I understand is if Tarantino ever wanted to work on Kill Bill 3, which I understand he's not going to do, but he wrote an idea for it, and it would have been her daughter
yeah.
taking revenge on the bride.
hmm So, what has Quentin said? He's not going to do Kill Bill Volume 3, no matter what.
No, he's working on some film. He said it's his last one. He's calling it
Uh,
The Movie Critic.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, there ain't, Kill Bill Volume 2 ended well. There ain't really much point in having Green's daughter going after Uma Thurman.
Yeah.
It would have just been it would have probably just been a rehash of Kill Bill.
Yeah.
And the thing is,
I'm
Veronica
glad
Green
he's doing
started it.
something else.
The thing is, as I say, Veronica Green and the rest of Bill's squad started it. They ruined Thurman's wedding, so.
Yeah. She's not that interesting of the assassin. I think Vernita Green is kind of she's the first one on the bucket list. Although I don't think canonically she is. I can't remember how she wrote it, but it's the first one we're introduced to. She puts up a fight. The scene kind of happens. It's cool action. Great
Yeah.
cinematography is great. I like how it's action and then it's melancholy. So you have these pieces of violent action, and then the 10-year-old walks into the room, and we have to chill. And then they have a
Yeah.
conversation in the kitchen. They try to act like adults, and then they try to kill each other again. It's very funny. I will say that it's very funny.
Definitely. But yeah, you know they're both good. They know what they're doing. They throw down, brilliant fight scene, as I say. Great with their fists, great with the knives, etc. Great reactions. But then we see her in her coma as well, and getting her hands on the pussy wagon.
Yeah.
Because you feel quite bad for her being in the coma, and that idiot, whatever his name was, I can't remember his name, the nurse or doctor.
Oh, Buck, and I like
That's
to
it, yeah.
fuck.
But yeah,
Yeah.
that dude gets his friend in to try and have it
Yeah.
away with a coma induced Beatrix kiddo, but then
Yeah.
he gets fucked over. He gets his tongue ripped out, which is hilarious, and then
Yeah.
Buck gets fucked over as well. And then I love the big toe. Now movie Big Toe, that was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, wiggle your big toe.
That's it, yeah.
Definitely Tarantino fetish extremes.
Yeah, it was, but it was
A very uncomfortable scene, but yeah,
no. I
it's
think it was a
very
good
well
scene.
written.
Yeah, to be honest, I never actually thought of when I was watching that. I wasn't thinking of Tarantino's fetish. I was just thinking, oh, this is a pretty cool scene. She's trying to get physically back to her normal self just
Yeah.
by her willpower.
It works on both mediums. It works as a great scene, but also, you know, it's kind of his fan service for himself.
But then she goes on a journey to get her hands on Lucy Liu. We get Lucy Liu's backstory in anime, which was, I mean, some of it really made me cringe. You know, the violence and everything, and how
Oh,
slow
with
the
the
violence.
it's because it's like animated, right?
Yeah, and you do feel bad for Lucy Liu's character.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Ren is a very intriguing, one of more Tarantino's more intriguing characters because there's
mhm,
not too much, even though we have a good backstory, she's still there's a lot to be said about her character that I still don't think is said, especially with her politics, which I wish was explored more because she's cool. She's an interesting character, and Lucy Liu is a fucking badass. um,
yeah, she's really
you know,
kick ass.
yeah. Uh, of course, that's kind of the more uh, bigger villain of this movie. Because obviously she is whacked off by the end of the second one. Uh, but I like corrupt Japan. It's a cool idea. It's a good premise.
Yeah, and she goes to obviously get that special sword off that geezer who made Bill's swords. She just mentions his name to that geezer. I like how he's such like a friendly, chill dude at first, and then he's having to go at his son or his employee or whoever that is, and he's like, "Mate, why are you being so lazy, you bastard?" And then Uma Thurman's like, "Well, I want the sword. You know, I want this sword made." And he's like, "All right then, I don't do
Yeah.
these anymore, but I'll do this as a bar."
Hattori Hanzo. Um, yeah, he's really cool.
I can't believe Uma had to murder a 17-year-old. Well, sorry, Beatrix had to murder a 17-year-old. But she did tell that kid to leave. She did say, "Well, you know, get out the room, leave, I beg you." And then she's just laughing. But obviously, if
Yeah.
you're part of the group, Lucy Liu's group, you're not just going to leg it, are you? And she put up a good fight, but eventually Uma just managed to whoop her. So,
Oh,
but yeah, and the one with the lady with the
you're talking about Gogo Yubari.
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. She I forget her actress's name. She is actually in one of Tarantino's favorite films and personally mine as well, Battle Royale. Which is how she ended up, I believe why Tarantino ended up searching to get her in Kill Bill cuz she is a great character and she's very scary for just being a Japanese teenager. And I love her death scene. Her death scene is beautifully shot. The fight scene with the ball and chain and the sword, and when her eyes bleed, it's very very cool.
Damn, I'm looking at this the description for Battle Royale, and it seems quite bloody dark. But obviously, it's an
Yeah,
interesting film.
practically you have these. It's when I think it's Japan. I don't think it's China. Japan, it's like a very futuristic Japan, and their
Hmm.
government is overpopulated, or their country is overpopulated. So the government decides to take overpopulation into control by basically doing the Hunger Games to high school students. It's a
Mental.
cool movie. It's really cool. I love Battle Royale a lot. But that's just you can see where Tarantino gets a lot of his actors and his inspiration to write a lot of the stuff he does because he's a nerd in his own right. He likes these movies that he grows up with. It he didn't grow up with Battle Royale, but he would have probably seen it after the 90s and he would have found where he wanted to get his actors and what kind of things he was looking for.
Yeah. Um. But yeah, when she takes on all of Lucy Liu's guards at first, and then Lucy Liu's
Yeah, the
laughing her head
Crazy
off, and
88.
she's like, "You thought it'd be that easy?" And then all the crazy 88 are just there and trying to throw down, and that's it's just brilliant. There's so much
My
adrenaline.
my favorite line actually that Tarantino has ever written was in volume 2 of Kill Bill. And it's a conversation between Bill and Michael Madsen's character Bud. And they're talking about how she killed all the crazy 88 and Michael Madsen's character says why do they call him the crazy 88? was there actually 88 of them? And then Bill says, I don't know. I guess they just thought it sounded cool. Because I think it's funny in retrospect, because a lot of people want to find meaning of everything, and it's called this because of this and that and that. Well, Tarantino movies are just, big. I wouldn't call them blockbusters exactly, but they're big action movies. They're dynamically written thrillers and action films. And at the end of everything, sometimes things are just the way they are because it looks cool. It doesn't have to be, I guess, periodically written to the story or anything. It's just he does it because it's cool, and it sure is.
For sure. But yeah, she gets through the 88. I like how she spares one of them who's just like, ugh! And then she spanks him and says,
chops down
"Don't
his
fuck with
sword
the
and spanks him.
Yakuza." And then she tells him to leave. So it shows she's not as evil as everyone. Well, she's not as bad. She's less bad than all the other. I wouldn't say she's particularly a bad person. She's just fuming that they've ruined her life.
More morals than the rest of them.
Yeah. I mean, she used to be a bad person going around killing people for money, but I think the stuff she does in Kill Bill, I guess it kind of is bad, but they really fucked her over. So what do you expect? Yeah. But Volume 1, 9 out of 10. Really, really enjoyed it. Great bands.
Yeah, I mean, the ending with Oren and the bride shot like there's a movie that it's very similar, close to. I think it's Lady Snowblood, with the snow and the easels tipping the water, and it's very cool. I love it a lot. I give Kill Bill Volume 1 a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, fair enough. Volume 2. Yeah, it's again just great bands at the start. She's like, I got bloody satisfaction. And then she's like, I'm on the way to Kill Bill. And it's like, damn, fair play
It's
to you.
like, damn,
So
roll credits. She said the title of the movie.
we already know that she already killed Michael Madsen and the eye patch lady. So, yeah, roll credits.
Well, that happens in the second one.
No, but like at the start of the second one, she's like, I've killed everyone who's fucked me over. Now it's time to kill Bill.
Oh, right. Yeah, because that's supposed to be the premise that it's foreshadowing, right? I like how we get more of the church scene and we understand what happens at the wedding in the second one.
Yeah.
I like all the black and white things. Samuel L. Jackson as the piano player is great. Yeah, cool. That we get to learn more about that, because I think that's more of why we want to know what happens, because Kill Bill 1 is the present, and then Kill Bill 2 actually focuses a lot on the past. Her training and what happened at the wedding and everything. We have the cool buried alive scene, which you would wish there were worse ways to die, and I'm sure there are, but wow, that sucks. That's something I hadn't thought about.
I mean, I think Eye Patch Lady had a worse death, but it's funny how Eye Patch Lady was like, well, make her suffer for me. And then she stabbed Michael Madsen in the back anyway. And if Michael Madsen had been alive, there'd been two of them versus one of Beatrix. Maybe Eye Patch Lady wouldn't have had such a horrible death. I think that's worse.
It comes down to war pride, because I forget her, Ellie Driver. She just wants to. It's like how the main, how sometimes the main villain's like, but keep the good guy alive because I want to kill them. It's a very self-inflated thing, and I think, movie's got a movie. It's got to be interesting to some degree. So things would work out in the villain's favor if maybe they just killed them instead.
Yeah.
But yeah, she wants to kill herself, and she wants to take the sword, so she kills Michael Madsen and everything. I think also, to a degree, she wanted to kind of knock down the competition for herself as well as an assassin.
But you know, with her being trapped in the coffin, I liked how we got to see her training and her and Bill chatting away. And
Yeah.
you know, Bill wasn't the one who trained; it was Bill's master, and she's doing the whole that punch to get through the wood, which is pretty cool. And we
Yeah.
see that being done in the casket, which is pretty dope. And she gets out and she hunts down. Well, she doesn't get to kill Bud, but she gets to kill Driver. So,
Yeah.
and the way
Um,
we might as well move on to the Bill stuff because that was pretty cool. Our daughter's actually alive, and we see a daughter and Bill. There's one big plot hole
yeah.
I have with that whole thing that baffles me, but I'll go on to that in a bit.
All
I'll
right.
leave that till the end because it is pretty much the end of the film.
Yeah.
But it's cool how Bill's acting so like nice, and it shows that he's a really weird, interesting guy because he's evil, pure evil, but he's like really likable and a casual, you know,
He's a
even a bit
very
of a geeky guy.
cool fella.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
he has a very oh, there's a word for it. A very flowistic kind of way he talks. He talks very smoothly. He knows what he's talking about, and he does it with ease.
Yeah.
David Carradine, there's no other actor that could have played Bill any better than he did because
Mhm.
he's literally very chill like that. Um, great great line delivery every time they said the line. What I wanted to talk about earlier is his superhero dynamic.
Yeah, that was
Um,
really cool.
I love that scene when he talks about Superman and the way that, that's like the quote unquote best superhero because that's what everything can be, but he has one weakness. Um and that has to do a lot with, I guess, front running Kill Bill itself because like I was saying how the villains are very stereotypical and they're just they could have killed the good person the whole time and all this stuff without having to do it themselves. Um, Even though it's trying to be more respectful to classic Japanese cinema and action films, I like how it's got a very comic book vibe to it. Almost, it's set up like a normal superhero arc. The good guy versus the bad guy and the end of all things. And then you fight off all the minions to get to the bad guy that he could have killed you with from the first time if he had just not cared enough. Um, that whole scene is probably one of Tarantino's best written scenes, in my opinion. Maybe not his best, but the talk between those two and the last couple of words before they fight on the patio. Um, just different to compare it
Yeah,
to the rest of it because as we've been talking about how he makes very surreal realistic characters. This is about the time when, since we've established that in our head, Tarantino can start to play around a little more. So he plays with these lines of dialogue that are a little more fictitious and just more, another better worse word for it is dynamic, is just more charactery, but they're cool. And yeah, I love the ending of Kill Bill. His daughter or her daughter is alive. I like how he has a very normal relationship with her. He's not teaching her to be an assassin or anything. They're playing, killing each other with water guns or whatever, but he's not like hardcore training her or anything. He's just making her
mhm.
sandwiches and they watch movies together, and it's a very normal father-daughter relationship for such a evil and tyrannical person.
Yeah. I mean, you made a lot of good points there. I was gonna say though, their final fight was cool. He mentioned the master never teaches anyone the touch of death, the heart touch of death, and
The
he taught it to Uma
five
Thurman.
the 5-point palm explosion, yeah.
That's it, yeah.
But
And
he taught it to her.
he's like bloody hell, and then he accepts defeat and walks off. But the only thing that baffles me, the only big plot hole I have, no way would some daughter, after her dad's dead in the garden, go off with her mom who she's never seen ever. You know
Yeah,
that doesn't make any sense. That's just like what the hell. I know
I
it's
mean,
meant to
I
be got
get
a
it
happy
because, like, she was sleeping, right? But at the same time, it's like she never questioned what happened to Bill. She's
end.
just,
Yeah,
"Okay." You know, I get
one
it
of the
if,
weirdest things ever.
I get it if Beatrix Kiddo, like, packed her up when she was sleeping and then they drove off
Hmm.
because she was sleeping, but you wouldn't question what happened to your dad. You would just be like, "Ah, yeah, mom." After I haven't seen you for what? She's like 10, 9.
Well, she's 4, isn't she?
She a lot younger.
Yeah, she's 4. I'm pretty sure because they say about how Beatrix was asleep for 4 years, so I'm pretty sure
Hmm.
the daughter's 4
Oh,
years
that might
old.
be it. I can't remember.
But yeah, that was the only really weird thing. Apart from that, 9 out of 10, bellissima, great
Yep,
film.
I love it. I think, I think Kill Bill 2 is probably better in retrospect to the first one.
Yeah.
However, they work together as one movie, so that's what matters.
Hmm.
I think Kill Bill is possibly Tarantino's magnum opus. I think both films are a 10 for me. They work, of course. If I ranked his stuff, I would rank them together rather than two separate things. Even
Yeah.
though I specifically like the second one a little more. Um, just great. There's nothing like Kill Bill. There's what Tarantino wants to homage and his actors, and there are very gory um, katana fight films, but there's nothing the way Kill Bill is designed, and there's no neo-Japanese western that is the way Tarantino has written Kill Bill. Great.
Yeah. Fair play. I guess we can nicely wrap up there then. I mean, I would bring up the violent stuff. I know I mentioned it a bit earlier, but his other films are a lot more violent, which we will eventually review once I get round to watching them. It'll probably rewatching them. It'll probably take me a million years again, but I'll get round to it nonetheless.
All right. Well, yeah, I'll have to take a look into. Um, I've seen all of his films, but I'll have to take another rewatch at least Death Proof and
Oh yeah.
Inglorious Bastards. I love Death Proof as much as I do, but I have not seen it in a very long time.
Hmm.
I honestly do think though, if it was because he does not have a film in the Criterion collection yet, but if he did, I think it'd probably be something like Death Proof or Jackie Brown, something that's not his big ones, because that's just kind of what
Hmm.
they do, and I think Jackie Brown probably the most, as it's more of a story ridden film, but hopefully we'll see that in the next couple of years whenever this next Tarantino film comes out.
Yeah, that'll be pretty dope. Fingers crossed. Um, yeah. Well, I guess we'll end that one there then. So, thank yous for watching and take care. Have a good one. Peace.
Yes, everyone out there, have a good day. Thank you for having me on, James.
No worries, man. Peace out.